Hello, everybody who is joining us. Um, we are just getting underway. We'll probably wait another couple minutes um, to get started officially to see if who's going to join us, who isn't yet here. Um, Let's see, something for us to do while we're waiting. If you just want to share into the chat, maybe where you're calling from and whether you're feeling like it's spring. Is it summer where you are? Is there no seasons where you are? I'm Laura Quinn. I'm in Midcoast, Maine, and it has finally seemed like it has achieved spring. It's been a long haul to try to get here. But yes, we have a number of flowers. We have, it's actually like 85 yesterday, which is super hot for here. So yeah. Martha is in Texas and says it's month 6 of summer already. Yeah, kind of the opposite of Maine, I suspect, that you're just ready for it to be winter already, when I am ready for it to be, well, not literally opposite, but when I typically I get 7 months of winter. We're getting some funny responses. Um, Laura in Cleveland. It was summer earlier this week, but now back to early spring. Yeah, fantastic. Great. All right, let us get underway with our topic and some by voice intros, because that is an important part for this group, is all of us meeting each other. Um, Hi, I am Laura Quinn. I am a consultant to nonprofits on websites. I do a ton of work with civil legal aid, especially statewide websites. Today we are talking about how to define what new articles would be useful. This is a group for legal content managers. So we are all of us, or at least some of us, doing legal content. And some of that is trying to figure out when you don't have everything you need, whether you're creating a new site or when there is the opportunity, which is sometimes exciting new opportunity that you haven't had in a while to actually write some new stuff. So let's check in by via voice, if you would. I will actually potentially figure out how to see the whole list of everybody. I'm going to call on people just because I find that it's just a little easier than other ways. I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself and your organization, kind of give a headline of something that has been useful to you in this area. So, for instance, in 1 minute or less, one way we investigate what articles would be most useful to our visitors is, or, one way we have done this that was useful. So I just put that prompt into the chat. So Jennifer, I'm going in order by what I can see, so it may be totally arbitrary. I think it's actually in the order of when you logged in. Jennifer, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could please kick us off with who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what has been useful, if anything.
Yeah,
To
sure. My name is Jennifer Simmons. I sit in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm with the North Carolina Equal Access to Justice Commission, and I have worn a lot of different hats. I'm here on this call with the hat of we're starting a project about legal information governance and trying to get consistent across a lot of different kind of ad hoc websites and projects, and make sure that we're updating things consistently across all of those. So when this invitation popped up, I thought, wow, perfect. Right now, we're actually doing a big inventory, and so we're not quite at this stage of deciding what new topics need to be created yet, but more at the stage of figuring out what we have. But in thinking about that, I've been considering a lot what calls we're getting and what requests for help we're we do a really crappy job of tracking that. I mean, we have it all, but it's like a Google Doc. So I've been thinking about how to capture that and kind of quantify that in a way that we can compare the material that we have and make try to identify holes that way.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Yeah, and certainly inventory itself, knowing what you have, step one to knowing what you might need. Fabulous. Sarah, what do you think?
Hi, I'm Sarah Capdeval. I'm the Legal Education Project Coordinator over at Montana Legal Services Association. Um, and similarly to Jennifer, I've been doing a bit of inventory just in preparation. We have our attorneys on staff here, um, review all of our articles. Hopefully every year is the goal. And so I've just been getting that inventory up to date so that I can send the articles in various topics to those attorneys. And so that's just been helpful to see what we have, and where some gaps might be. I think also similarly of what asks are and what people are calling in, for help with, and then just hearing what case handlers and attorneys, what issues they're running into, and just kind of having, with those multiple hats that we often wear, of being in different rooms where people are talking about, oh, I'm seeing this issue come up. Montana is moving ahead with a lot of changes to Medicaid. And so just having a pulse on those changes and how that might impact clients and potential clients, and getting ahead of having that information as accessible as possible. So it's just kind of like being in different rooms and hearing what people are seeing on the ground, and then knowing what we have, and filling those gaps in that way.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Tara, if you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay, what? I'm sorry. Can you re?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So basically we're your name, your organization, which we can kind of see from your your
Yes.
screen, and one way so kind of just a quick headline of what one way you investigate what articles would be most useful to your visitors.
Sure. So I'm Tara Gross. I use they, them pronouns. I'm at Illinois Legal Aid Online, which is one way or the other. I'm not sure which one. It's flipped for me. So I think one of the biggest things that I do is actually going on Reddit. I like to look for the kinds of conversations that people are having, and I have an anonymous-ish, pseudonymous browsing account that's just for browsing. And I look into the kinds of questions people have, the misinformation that is shared in threads. And then I do some follow-up Google searching to see what are common misconceptions on a topic, and then try to directly target that so that if people are doing any kind of web search based on the questionable things that they're getting, I want them to find my content.
Great, thank you. Fantastic. Millie.
Hi, I'm Millie Herr, and I'm with Community Legal Aid SoCal, obviously located in SoCal, coastal area. We rely heavily on our legal advocates to work with us on this type of thing. I look for articles. When I come across them, I have to run them by the folks in the legal divisions and see whether or not that's something we want to share. They also will give us information that they think needs to be put out there. So we have a section, community legal news, that folks can access. It's not super robust. We don't spend a heck of a lot of time on it, but it's ad hoc. When things come up, then we address them.
Fantastic. Great. Chris, what do you think?
Hey there, I'm Chris Surratt. I'm at Legal Services Vermont. And one of the things that we talk about with our intake folks is what are things that get asked a lot about, but also what are some things that we can more easily explain in steps 1 through 10 to get somebody through. So asking for your security deposit to be returned and following up with those steps if you don't get your money back is an example, or suing somebody in small claims court. So we've created roadmaps, which are multi-page info on all those steps. And then we've also added some DocAssemble guided interviews for the small claims. So that's one thing we look at.
Fantastic. Terrific. I apologize for this, what is probably a completely arbitrary order. So everybody's like, when will I be called on? Here, I'll give a preview of what order I'm seeing. Angel or Angel A, Karen, Elise, and then Martha. And then, oh, we've got so many people. Jay, Rachel, Rebecca, Yamina. I apologize if I am butchering people's names. All right, so that's the order I'm seeing. Let's go back to Angel. Angel A? How do I pronounce her name?
Angel.
Angel. Great. Thank you.
Yes, I am with Pisgah Legal Services here in Western North Carolina. And I've been here just over a year now and have just kind of really started going back into our website and trying to update things. But one of the ways that we are adding new material is I work very closely with our community outreach team. So they're out in the community at different events all the time. And so they are bringing back topics that clients are coming up to them and asking them about. And then we also meet regularly with our department heads for each of our areas and hear what kind of issues are coming up with their clients at any moment in time.
Great. Fantastic. Oh no, I feel like people may have switched orders on my screen. All right. Karen, I am currently seeing you, so that's what I'm calling on.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Laura. My name is Karen Heredia, and I am a content strategist, consultant. I've worked with several legal aid organizations across the country, but most recently I have been working on a project with Virginia Poverty Law Center. And I've been working with Law Help New York for several years now. And I would say, I mean, for VPLC, we've been using AI to identify the commonly searched for legal questions that people have on certain topics. And then, using the attorneys on the team to check and provide that information and answer those questions and add any other missing context. So that's been an interesting project just because, starting a new legal website from scratch is very fulfilling to be able to approach topics from just like a more robust thing. And then for Law Help, Law Help New York has a live chat feature, and so that's been one of the ways that we identify what questions people are asking when they seek help from the live chat. But I appreciate all the ideas, especially the Reddit one, Tara.
Fantastic. Yes, we are going to come back around to exactly that as to what people want to hear more about. Fantastic. Elise, what do you think?
Hello, everyone. My name is Elise Bechtold. I work for the Colorado Access to Justice Commission, serving as a project manager for Law Help Colorado in the Denver area. And we had a little bit of summer for like a week, but then it's been raining, which is like the most moisture we've gotten well, since last year, because we had like no winter here. So to go back to the weather question. So my answer to this question is a little bit more challenging because our website isn't live yet. And I accepted the project management position about 5 months ago. So I inherited all the content that we'll be moving forward with that were identified by my predecessors. So at this point, I am not identifying new content before soft launch. I'm just working to get all that content finalized going into soft launch. But then I'll also just say, because I see Rachel on here, and I think I saw Danielle and other folks from the Montana team who have been kind enough to answer lots of questions I've had, and using them as a resource has been great.
Awesome. Great. Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay Collier. I'm working as a consultant to 603 Legal Aid, which is in New Hampshire. I am in the midst of working on a rebuild of their website, and we've just finished a full cycle of content review, which included reducing the number of articles from 190 to 120. We also analyzed 3 years of search results to find out what people were looking for, not necessarily what they didn't find because they might not have been successful, but it was a start to determine which new articles to develop. Our content manager is also in the midst of contracting with a company that monitors rules and regulations in the state for changes and then aligns it with our articles to find out or to determine which should be top priority for updates. And we're looking forward to going live in November and being able to continue to update from there.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Harris. I'm the content manager at Ohio Legal Help. We do a lot of the things that everyone else has already talked about. One place where I always get really good feedback that can sometimes be surprising, especially coming from the legal aid perspective, is we have an advisory group with folks that are not legal aid attorneys, but are professionals that kind of help people with legal issues. So like folks that work in courts or folks that work in public libraries or law libraries or some other social service providers. And so sometimes you can get different pieces of the puzzle that where folks are running into problems. So that's another great way to get article ideas.
Fantastic. Perfect. Yaima, am I saying that right?
Yaima, but it's a difficult name. I hear you.
Sorry.
My name is Yaima Hagstrom. I am also a legal content manager, Illinois Legal Aid Online, with Tara, and we have another content manager as well, who couldn't make the call. So we do a lot of what's already been talked about. I really enjoy the ones where we have community members participate. So we have stakeholder meetings where we hear not only the type of content that they want, but how they want it organized or sort of like what they're thinking about when they're accessing the content. I find that really helpful because it isn't just about having the information, but how is it being accessed? So how do we organize it? So I find that to be particularly useful. And then I also try to think about how are we going to maintain the content going forward? Because sometimes we can find an expert that can help us write about something and then we can have that up for a while, but it's really difficult to then keep it updated. And so how helpful is it if it's not going to be updated, past 1 or 2 years? And so thinking through some of that when deciding what we're going to be writing about. So that some of the things that I used, aside from like we have our stakeholder meetings or contact us forms, are really helpful. When people have questions about the content, it helps us understand the gaps on about what we have.
Fantastic. All right, and I think just 2 more people. Last but not least, I have Martha and Rebecca. Martha and Rebecca, I think you were a little later to join us. Here's the prompt. So who you are, who you work with, and one way you investigate what articles would be most useful to your users. Martha?
Sure. Well, I'm Martha Beard Duncan, managing attorney at Texas Law Help. And like a lot of you, we have several methods of investigating content and articles to add. One, like some of you, we also have a live chat program where we get to interface and provide legal information and legal advice, and that positions us pretty well to identify gaps in our material, especially if we see an uptick in some particular question. And we're staffed on chat by attorneys who double as content creators and managers, so that really means we can we have a good idea of what inventory we have and what needs adding. Also, our main funder requires other grantees to contribute to the website, so we collaborate with them. We also collaborate with law libraries and courts and other programs within Texas Legal Services Center, which is the nonprofit that runs the website. For example, the hotline for senior Texans has been getting a lot of calls about solar panel scams, so we probably need to add something about that. But I love some of the other ideas I've heard here. Particularly curious about how some of y'all are deploying AI to run these analyses.
Fantastic. Great. And Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca Pressman. I'm the law librarian at Legal Services of New Jersey. I am not the director of content, but I am involved in producing content. And I'm partially here because it's about time for us to redo our website. And we get our material from a self-help newsletter, and we've been putting out since '82. And it goes from that to the web. Mm-hmm. And so the strength of it is that our attorneys write the content. And so they are experts, they're aware of the current issues. The downside of that is if it's not an area of expertise, it doesn't get covered. So just for fun, I put our one page of our website into Google Gemini and said, evaluate this just to get another evaluation. And it said, okay, you have this, and this, and that's really strong. But common questions that people ask that you don't have here are this and this and this. And just to get an idea, we have Google Analytics, but just to get an idea that's as straightforward as that was very helpful. And I write the court section, and I had an article on state administrative law agencies, and I put it in and I said, here's my article. Is there something that people ask you that isn't in this article? And it came up with one really very important point, which is in New Jersey, you don't appeal from an administrative law decision by going to the Office of Administrative Law. You go to the agency that made the decision. And they said, which I wouldn't have thought of. And so a lot of people get knocked out of their appeals immediately because the OAL doesn't send it back to the agency. So just using AI as a kind of, what can you tell me that I haven't thought about? Or how does what I have here reflect what people want to know is very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Great. Thank you. And in fact, I see one more person that I missed, and there may be more people. I'm going to check in just a second. Laura Kay. So just let's keep them brief. So 1 minute or less. One thing, so who you are, obviously, and your organization. One way you investigate what articles would be most useful to your visitors.
Yeah, I'm Laura Klingler. I'm with the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland in Cleveland, Ohio. And similar to like what a lot of folks have said, really rely a lot on our program teams and our attorneys about what they're hearing, what questions they're getting, and then, checking to make sure that we have the materials to support, those inquiries that they're receiving.
Fantastic. Great. And is there anybody who hasn't introduced themselves that I've missed? raise your hand or just shout it out?
Well, me. So,
Oh, I'm
but
sorry,
everybody knows who I am, I would think
always
so.
forget you, Shelley, please.
No worries. So I'm Shelley Reed. I'm the manager of the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Project. And one way that we investigate what would be most useful is by listening. So when we have the opportunity to have webinars and things. And so when people are talking about things or asking questions, that is always a great opportunity for us to make note and then see if those questions pop up again. So that's one thing that we do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley. I apologize. My most important stakeholder, because she pays the bills. So what I'd like to do next is, if you could put into the chat something that you heard just now that you'd like to hear more about. That we're going to ask a couple of people, we're going to put them on the spot just to say a little bit more about what they, and some of these were clusters of things. So we might ask a couple people to speak. So as you do that, so you think about that and you're putting that in, just to the arc for today is we're going to do that for another 15 or 20 minutes. And then there's going to be a little breakout at the end for you to talk to a couple of peers about what you're thinking you might take away, what you might try. Great. So I see you can, you could do a thumbs up on somebody, or you can do your own thing. Great number of votes for Reddit. So we'll definitely great. So and some interest in AI. So Karen will ask you to speak. If you want to put that back on me, I'm happy to. Let's see. Consultant, they target poverty law centers. Great. Perfect. All right. Well, continue to put them in as you have them. We've got clearly some big interest in Reddit. And in fact, that was top of mind for me as well, because I'm very interested as to, yes, so someone mentioned how to monitor. There's a lot on Reddit. So how do you monitor? How do you kind of try to figure out, there must be tons of just kind of duplicative posts. Do you just look at a lot of things, or do you somehow have a way of understanding what's a interestingly different, or in fact, what's just a common misperception? That was Tara. Tara,
Yes.
are you willing to talk a couple minutes about that?
Absolutely. I will be delighted if everyone all goes signs up for Reddit. The first thing I want to say about Reddit, though, is that you should know before you start using Reddit that there are sites that automatically copy and archive everything that's posted on Reddit right away. So it's very hard to delete anything completely from the internet once it goes on Reddit. Those sites do take some deletion requests, but it's kind of a shady business. So what I do is I have a specific Reddit account that is set up that I never post from. And it's just for reading different subs. And the way Reddit is organized, there are what are called subreddits, which are individual little communities that you can join. So one that I really read a lot is poverty finance. And that's a really interesting subreddit because it's actively moderated. And there are definitely efforts made in that community to make sure that everything is not totally duplicative. There's information in there. They have regular resources that they refer people to, or if they see that it matches a sort of problem that they've seen before. So if I see that it's just one post and it's somebody detailing their financial situation, which is one of the categories you're allowed to post there, somebody will explain what problems they're facing and ask for how do I navigate this? What do I do? if they only get a couple of responses, I know they're probably just being told, go read the materials we already have. But a lot of times they're presenting with a really interesting problem that has legal layers to it, and there's all kinds of consumer education pieces involved. So once I see that something on a quick scan looks like it's kind of a meaty thread, there's something worth getting into there, then I will take the time to review that. And then I literally just take notes. So I have an ongoing spreadsheet of topics that I think need further research, and I add things to it all the time. Sometimes I will send, I also manage our law student internship program. So the law students get used to me sending them to a Reddit thread. I check for profanity and other inappropriate stuff before I send it to them, but I will send them a thread and say, hey, I haven't seen this problem before. This looks relevant to our content. Can you do some research on this issue and get back to me with what you think they should be thinking about here?
Fantastic. Any questions for Tara before we move on to, I think, let's talk about AI. I'm going to ask Karen to talk about a little bit of AI, unless she wants me to talk about it. A question from Jennifer.
Yeah, I just was curious with Reddit. It's not what I expected you to say when you described it in terms of which subreddit you find most useful. I wondered if there's any value in kind of regionally or locally based uh, scanning to see, just more regionally specific, or if it really is kind of like people are talking about the same problems across everywhere.
So I would say that for poverty finance, and then there's several really good subs that are related to Social Security, including SSDI has its own. There's SSI, SSDI. There are ones for housing vouchers that include portability issues for people who are trying to move with their vouchers across the country. So those are kind of big picture ones. And then I also, because I edit our LGBTQIA plus content, I also monitor a variety of especially trans subs, because that's an area where I can get accurate information about what people are freaking out about very quickly, and often find out stuff before it comes into my inbox with an alert, which is great. But I do also look within state specific and Illinois, Chicago specific. Chicago has some very active housing subs in particular that are really helpful in terms of knowing problems that are going on. So I would encourage you, edit. When you go on Reddit, it's got a little bit of that flavor of the old internet. Like it is the wild, wild west. So use your judgment. There are often multiple subreddits for a particular topic, and they're not all equally maybe useful for legal research purposes. The one that I highly recommend staying away from is anything that's a legal advice one. There are legal advice subreddits. Personally, they raise my blood pressure and make me want to tear my hair out. So I no longer go to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for, so I've put you on the spot, Tara, and you came through with flying colors. There are a couple of questions that are really interesting that are just kind of people that were in the chat, that were people kind of interested in how does this affect you? So Elise asks, I'm sorry, Elise, I've cut off your beginning H. So that's how does funding impact which content areas you build out, or does it? From Phil, so these aren't specifically for Tara, these are for the whole group. From Phil, does feedback about practical usability inform your content choices, not just how the content is presented, topics you give more attention to because their issues users can more simply do effective things. So I'm interested as we talk about other things. So I've also made note of these these could be sessions in of themselves, especially that second one. But if people have thoughts and are able to multitask, would definitely be interested in you weighing in on these questions in the chat, by just hitting the reply next to it, as we take on our next thing, which is going to be me throwing to Karen to talk a little bit about. So we heard a little bit in more detail about using AI to look at particular articles. So basically, you can take AI as I think it was Rebecca who described this, taking a specific article and saying, hey, from your experience, Gemini, what's missing? Karen and I worked together on the new upcoming in 2 weeks Virginia Law Help site.
Next week.
Next week, yay! Karen, you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, totally. And I would say all of this credit for AI as identifying commonly searched for questions, I will give to Laura because I had not really been using AI a lot in this work, with both as a content writer and I think in the legal space. I've found it to just be the most effective and safe to, have full control over the content. But I think with identifying these commonly searched for questions. And I've now, I learned about this and implemented this with Laura at VPLC Virginia for this new website. But I've started using it for Law Help New York as well. Especially this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Law Help New York does not have a lot of content for mental health. Legal issues related to mental health. And so it's been very, very interesting to see this applied. So basically there are prompts that you can use. Some can go as simple as, please tell me commonly searched for questions in New York about mental health. And I've also tried just more detailed prompts on, please focus on questions that low income people might have. I've kind of experimented with New York versus nationally, things like that. I believe for Virginia, it was maybe a national quest. Well, I'd have to look up the prompt that we use for Virginia. But basically, Gemini generated approximately 20 to 30 most commonly searched for questions that then when we were starting the project for this new website launch in Virginia, I sorted in kind of categories based on those questions because some of them, might overlap a little bit. And then from there, those questions were reviewed and answered by the attorneys on the team that specialize in those areas. And so this was interesting for the article writing process because it was great to be able to feel like the topic was robustly covered and that we were answering commonly searched for questions and knowing that this would help also with SEO and with search tools. So the attorneys would answer those questions and then I turned those all that information into actual articles. And so even if a question didn't necessarily apply or was not, just some people searching for a question that might not be entirely correct, it was integrated into an article, even just to say this kind of thing doesn't apply, but here is what you can do, or go to legal aid or things like that. And so yeah, I think what we've ended up with was we ended up with way more articles than we thought. But every subtopic, having 5 to 8 articles that feel cover the most common scenarios, 80% of case studies, felt, I think the end result has felt very comprehensive articles for each subtopic. So you can check out the website next week when it's launching. And then I think for switching that over to Law Help New York, now using it, we're kind of exploring a similar process. And it's, I think it's just really helped identify next steps, especially for topics that we have not had. And I also think for current topics, it's a really nice way to make sure that we our existing content does have is covering the things that we need it to. Laura, is there anything else? Anything I missed?
I'll just add that all of that, yes, double down on. I think it is it has been particularly useful in Virginia's process, which is very lawyer heavy. So there hasn't been a lot of stakeholders who are not lawyers, other than Karen, who's not a lawyer and is a fantastic plain language writer, weighing in on the content. In that they are honestly sometimes irritated with the questions. I think it's very useful. And so it implies they never would have come up with those questions. So they're basically like, all right, this isn't the right way to ask this, or this doesn't apply. Well, that is what people are asking. And I feel like it's also the things that people aren't thinking to ask a lawyer when they call a pro bono attorney or they call a legal aid attorney. So I think it is useful for getting that perspective. I think it's not as difficult for many of us to get a lawyer perspective, but that one is tricky. Great. Questions for Karen? Fantastic. All right, we've got so much great stuff in the chat. I think what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to take all of the things that you're interested in, and I am going to pull them out. So there was two in particular. Oh, I didn't actually submit this. That seem like great whole sessions. One about curating content. So how do you think about, what's good content to link out to, what's good how do you merge content if you have multiples? And then I think there's definitely an inventory thing. How do you know what you have? Which seems silly unless you have been around with a site that nobody was tracking what it has. And then it is, a super relatable problem. So many of us have probably seen it. Fabulous. So what I'd like, but I want to make sure that we got a lot of ideas at the beginning, just a couple of more deep dives here. I want to make sure that we close by being able to kind of have a discussion with some of your colleagues and to come away with some actual ideas as to what you might do next. So I'm going to break you down into groups, which will take me just a second it always takes me a minute to remember where the tools are from tool to tool. Shelley, are you a pro on breaking down into groups?
I actually am looking for it as well because
here I
didn't use it today.
Great. So I am putting you in groups of 3 to 4. So for you to specifically talk with each other about what seemed compelling about something you potentially aren't doing but could do, and one thing you might try. So one thing you're taking forward with you. We're going to talk for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back for the last 5 minutes. So I'm creating the rooms now. You'll see a button that says join, and you can go join your group. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a productive conversation with your colleagues. Thank you, Shelley, for stopping those groups, because it was going to be a little bit exciting in a minute for me to find that. So in our last 5 minutes, I'd love to hear from you in the chat as to just kind of one thing you are taking away. So one thing that you want to kind of commit to yourself to try out. Fantastic. Ooh, and Amber's note taker is taking it away. Ooh, I'm looking at all of the things about inventory. Taking down names. Great. Definitely people thinking about Reddit. In my small group, people were thinking definitely about Reddit, thinking about AI prompt, how to use that to generate ideas. What else are people thinking as a next step? All right, be nice to me, be kind to me, and put in a next step. Otherwise, I feel lonely. All right, great. Thanks, guys. Um, great. Tara's mentioning content management spreadsheet with an expiration date. Yeah, we need to. I was just thinking that we should come back around to revisit our maintenance conversation as well. We've got a bunch of new people since we had that. Um, Law libraries and public librarians, absolutely. That was actually next on my list of what I was going to do a deep dive into. I do think that, like, actually, so talking to social services folks and things like that is another really interesting other perspective from lawyers and legal aid. Um, yeah, the consultant solution for legal updates. Jennifer, did you make note of who actually said that? Actually couldn't find in my notes who said that.
It was
For
Jay, and I was thrilled that we got put in a small section together.
oh, fantastic. Great. So you guys connected. Terrific. Perfect. Um, Terrific. Thank you so much we had a lot of new people today, or people who hadn't been with us for a while, which was really exciting. Please do. So this is a monthly group. It is all kind of in this format where we're all about learning from each other. Sometimes we have a little bit of presentation. Sometimes it is all discussion. Sometimes it is a little more group breakout groups than it was today. So definitely make it a priority to let people meet each other and talk. So absolutely. So the sessions are always the third Thursday. And you can see them for all the future months on the LSN Tap site. So if you signed up for this, I believe, Shelley, am I right in thinking that it's automatically on their calendar?
It should be, yes, for the rest of the year. But other training will be listed on our events page, which I'm dropping the link in the chat. We are working to add the meetings for the rest of the year. I think they were up through May, and so we're adding now through the rest of the year. But if you register one time, you should be registered for all of these meetings for the rest of the year.
Fantastic. And we will, yes, I think that probably we will do inventory on one of these next ones. And I had a second topic that I've took down that I now immediately forgot for another one of these upcoming ones. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope to see you again next month or soon.